My mother uninvited me from Mother's Day, calling me a badly behaved child who could skip this year. So, I made one simple phone call and reminded her exactly which badly behaved child paid for the country club membership she was planning to use. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The cursor on my screen blurred, the numbers of the quarterly audit dissolving into a meaningless swarm. I was on my third consecutive 12-hour day, buried in a high-stakes review for my firm. My office was dark save for the glow of my monitors, and the silence was broken only by the hum of the server and the sharp, sudden ringing of my phone. I snatched it, annoyed at the interruption. Ilara speaking. Ilara, you sound tired, my mother Meredith said. Her voice wasn't warm, it was observational, almost critical. Hi, Mom, it's just a big audit. What's up? I was just confirming our plans for this weekend, she said, her tone breezy. Chloe and I are trying to finalize the centerpiece arrangements. I sighed, rubbing my temples. Mom, I told you last week I can't make it to the pre-brunch planning. This audit is my top priority. I'll be there for the actual Mother's Day brunch on Sunday, just like we always do. I already RSVP'd. There was a pause, a cold, heavy silence that I had learned to dread. Well, that's just the thing, Ilara, she finally said, her voice dropping the pretense of pleasantry. Your sister and I were talking. This day is about celebrating mothers who have a good relationship with their children. It's for the family. I gripped the phone tighter. I am family mom. Are you? You're never here, you always have work. You couldn't even find time to help your sister with her car situation. Chloe is here every day, helping me being a daughter. You just aren't. I am a financial auditor, Mom. Refusing to co-sign a high-risk loan for a luxury SUV Chloe can't afford isn't bad behavior. It's responsible. It's selfish, she snapped. And we're tired of it, so we've decided we're doing Mother's Day with just the well-behaved kids this year. You can skip this one. The line clicked dead. I stared at the phone, the silence of my office rushing back in. For years, a call like that would have shattered me. I would have been flooded with guilt, desperate to apologize, to fix it, to buy my way back into her good graces. But this time was different. The exhaustion, the stress, the blatant unfairness, it all coalesced. For the first time in my life, the sting of her words wasn't followed by guilt, but by a sudden, cold clarity. My hands were shaking. I set the phone down on the desk, but it wasn't from sadness or panic. It was a low, simmering vibration of pure, undiluted anger. Skip this year, as if I were a petulant child being sent to my room. I leaned back in my chair, the audit forgotten. I thought about the Mother's Day brunch. It was our family's most sacred tradition. Not because of the sentiment, but because of the location, the Oakwood Country Club. For my mother, Oakwood was everything. It was her social stage, the physical proof of our family's standing. The lavish brunch in the main dining room, overlooking the 18th hole, was the highlight of her spring. She spent weeks planning her outfit, coordinating with my sister, Chloe. I thought about my last conversation with Chloe just 3 days ago. It wasn't a call, it was a verbal ambush. She had cornered me after a rare family dinner I'd managed to attend, demanding I co-sign for her new car. It's just a signature, Ilara, she'd whined, tossing her perfectly highlighted hair. The dealership said my credit wasn't established enough because I'm a stay-at-home mom. Chloe, that just a signature makes me legally responsible for a $70,000 loan, I had explained patiently for what felt like the 100th time. If you miss a payment, I default. My job is based on financial integrity. I can't do that. She had stormed off, accusing me of not supporting her journey as a mother. Now, I saw the battlefield clearly. That no was my great crime. That was the bad behavior Meredith was punishing me for. I was the uncooperative, unsupportive, difficult daughter. I looked at the phone, my mother's, "You can skip this year," echoing in my ears. I pictured her and Chloe sitting at the best table in the dining room, accepting sympathies from other members about their absent daughter. I smiled, a small, tight smile that didn't reach my eyes. My mother and sister loved to talk about tradition. They loved to talk about status. But they had forgotten one very expensive detail about this particular tradition. To understand my mother, you have to understand her priorities. Meredith thrives on appearances. Our family wasn't just a family, it was a presentation. And in this presentation, I was a constant disappointment. Chloe, my younger sister, was the golden child. She had done everything right in Mom's eyes, married her high school sweetheart, produced 2 perfect grandchildren, and lived 10 minutes away. She was compliant, sweet-natured, and, to be blunt, completely financially dependent on our parents and her husband. She was the perfect accessory to Mom's matriarchal image. I was the opposite. I was single, driven, and had built a demanding career as a forensic auditor. My job was, literally, to find things people tried to hide. I was meticulous, logical, and valued boundaries, 3 traits my mother found deeply offensive. My no wasn't just a word, it was a rejection of her entire worldview. Meredith herself was a woman carved from polished ice. Now in her 60s and retired, her job was managing the family's social standing. Her compliments were always backhanded. "Ilara, that pantsuit is so severe, but I suppose it's professional," and her love was entirely conditional. She demanded loyalty and obedience, and in return, she offered inclusion. If you stepped out of line, the warmth vanished. Her greatest obsession was the Oakwood Country Club. My father, a kind but pragmatic man, had secured a legacy membership there decades ago. When he passed away 5 years ago, it was the club, not the house, not his investments, that Mom worried about. It was her stage. It was where she met her friends, where she hosted parties, and where she solidified her status. And the Mother's Day brunch was her annual coronation. She loved the fawning service, the opulent floral displays, and the envious glances she got from people on the waiting list. She had been talking about this year's brunch since Christmas, and now she had used it as a weapon to punish me. A weapon she thought I had no defense against. My shift from victim to strategist was instantaneous. The fog of hurt and obligation that had clouded my relationship with my mother for 38 years simply evaporated. I was an auditor. I dealt in facts, in black and white, in bylaws and breach of contract. I turned from my audit spreadsheets and opened a different file on my computer, my personal finance folder. I clicked on a subfolder labeled Oakwood. Here was the clever trap, the key piece of leverage. My father, a man who saw both his daughters clearly, had arranged his will with meticulous care. He hadn't left the membership to Meredith. He knew she would likely leverage it to manipulate us or, worse, sell it. He left the sole, primary, non-transferable legacy membership to me. Meredith and Chloe were listed on my account. They were not members. They were family add-ons, my sponsored guests. I pulled up the club's official bylaws, a PDF I kept on file. I scrolled to Section 4, Guest Privileges and Member Responsibilities. The rule was clear, printed in stark Times New Roman. All sponsored family guests must be accompanied by the primary member when using club dining facilities during peak season events and holidays. This includes, but is not limited to, the Easter buffet, Mother's Day brunch, and the 4th of July gala. They hadn't just forgotten a detail, they had forgotten the entire power structure. My mother, in her quest to control everyone, had never bothered to read the fine print. She just enjoyed the perks. I didn't need a lawyer, I didn't need an investigator. My bad behavior, my attention to detail, my insistence on reading the rules was now my greatest asset. I picked up my phone. I didn't call my mother or my sister. I dialed the main number for the Oakwood Country Club. "Good evening, Oakwood," a polite voice answered. "Hello, David, this is Ilara last name. How are you?" "Ms. Last name? A pleasure." The membership director's voice warmed. I had worked with him on a charity audit for the club's board 2 years prior. "What can I do for you?" "Hi, David. I just need to clarify something for my family's reservation for the Mother's Day brunch this Sunday. I spent the next 2 days in a state of calm focus. I finished my audit, filed my report, and for the first time in months, I slept a full 8 hours. I did not call my mother. I did not text my sister. I let the silence stretch, knowing exactly what was coming. It came on Saturday afternoon, less than 24 hours before the brunch. My phone buzzed with a text from Chloe. Mom is so excited for the brunch, she even bought a new hat. It's a shame you're being so stubborn. Are you sure you can't just apologize and come? My fingers flew across the screen, my tone as cool and professional as one of my audit reports. Chloe, Mom made her wishes very clear. I was uninvited. I won't be attending. I waited a beat, then sent the follow-up text, the one that would light the match. By the way, since Mom insisted I'm not to be there, you might W. Aunt to call the club. They can be very strict about members being present with their guests on holidays. Just wouldn't want you to have a problem at the door. Her reply was almost instant, a single question mark. I replied, just call them. Ask about the policy for guests of a primary member at a holiday brunch. The 3 dots of her typing appeared, vanished, and reappeared. Then my phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, a new text appeared. What do you mean guests? We're family, we're members. I smiled. No, Chloe, I am the member. You and Mom are my sponsored guests. Dad set it up that way. Check the bylaws. Section 4. The panic was palpable, even through the text. Elara, what did you do? I didn't do anything, I typed. Mom uninvited the primary member. I simply respected her wishes and informed the club that I would not be in attendance. Per their rules, my guests cannot be seated without me. I'm sure you can find a nice reservation somewhere else. The phone rang again. This time I answered. It was Chloe, and she was hysterical. Elara, you have to fix this. Mom is in the living room with Aunt Linda. They're talking about the brunch. She'll be humiliated. This is not my problem to fix, Chloe, I said, my voice steady. I was walking through my apartment, watering my plants. You're canceling Mother's Day, she sputtered, her voice thick with tears of rage, not sadness. I didn't cancel anything. I was uninvited. Remember, I'm the badly behaved child. I'm just following Mom's orders and skipping this year. The consequences of that are just the consequences. The club has rules. I thought you, of all people, would appreciate following the rules of a matriarch. But, it's Dad's membership, she argued, trying to find a foothold. Yes, it is, I said gently. And he left it to me. He knew I would pay the dues. He knew I would follow the rules. And he knew I wouldn't let anyone misuse it. There was a choked sound on the other end. You're doing this to punish me for the car, aren't you? I'm not doing anything, Chloe. You and Mom made a decision based on the assumption that I would just absorb the insult and still let you use my name and my money to maintain your social status. You assumed wrong. I heard muffled shouting. Chloe had apparently put me on speakerphone. It was Meredith. Elara, you will call that club and you will reinstate this reservation right now. This is my Mother's Day. Hello, Mom, I said calmly. I thought I wasn't to be included in Mother's Day this year. I'm just respecting your wishes. You are an ungrateful, spiteful child, she shrieked. And you, I replied, the ice in my voice matching hers, are a guest on my account. An account belonging to the daughter you just uninvited. Enjoy your brunch, Mom, wherever you end up having it. I hung up. On Sunday morning, I did not go to the Oakwood Country Club. Instead, I went to my favorite bakery, bought a fresh croissant and a large coffee, and sat in the park, reading a book. It was the most peaceful Mother's Day I'd had in a decade. At 11:05 a.m., my phone, which I'd set to Do Not Disturb, began to vibrate on the bench beside me. It buzzed once, twice, then 6 more times in rapid succession. The showdown had begun. I learned what happened later from my aunt, who had been an unfortunate witness. Meredith, Chloe's husband, and 2 children, and 2 of Mom's sisters had all arrived at the Oakwood Country Club at 11, 00 a.m. sharp, dressed in their pastel finest. Meredith, holding her new hat, swept to the reservation desk. "Reservation for last name," she announced imperiously. "Table for 8. The young hostess looked at the screen, her smile faltering. She glanced up, recognized Meredith, and immediately looked panicked. She murmured something and disappeared. A moment later, David, the membership director, emerged. He was in his best suit, his expression one of professional, deep regret. "Mrs. Last Name," he said, his voice low and polite. "A pleasure to see you. I'm afraid your party does not have a reservation with us today." Meredith laughed, a short, sharp sound. "That's absurd. It's a standing reservation. It's under Alara Last Name." "Yes," David said, nodding gravely. "Ms. Alara Last Name is the primary member. Her account is in perfect standing." He paused, and the lobby grew quiet. Other members, waiting to be seated, were beginning to watch. "However," David continued, "Ms. Alara Last Name informed us on Friday that she would not be in attendance today. As you know, our policy for the Mother's Day brunch strictly requires the primary member to be present to host their guests. I'm afraid I cannot seat you." The color drained from my mother's face. I am her mother." "I understand, ma'am, but the club rules are the rules. They apply to all memberships. We cannot make an exception." "This is ridiculous. I am a member." "Are here," Meredith's voice was rising, cracking the polite hush of the lobby. "Ma'am," David said, his voice firming, "you are a sponsored guest on your daughter's account. Without her, you do not have signing privileges or access to holiday events. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have other members to seat." He turned, leaving my mother standing in the lobby, her face white with rage and pure, unadulterated public humiliation. When I finally answered my phone an hour later, it was to a sound I had never heard from my mother: silence. She was on the line, but she was just breathing. The anger had burned out, leaving nothing but the cold ashes of defeat. "Mom," I asked. "They're all gone," she said, her voice small. "Chloe took the kids to a diner. Linda and Mary just left. I'm in the car, in the parking lot." "I'm sorry it came to that, Mom," I said, and I meant it. I hadn't wanted to humiliate her. I had wanted to be respected. "You were uninvited," I said softly. "You told me I was badly behaved and that I should skip this year. I just assumed that meant my membership wasn't welcome either. I am the badly behaved child after all." There was another long pause. "Your father, he left it to you," she whispered. "Yes, he did." "He knew," she said. "It wasn't a question." "Yes, Mom, I think he did." That evening, Chloe called me. She was alone, the kids in bed. She wasn't crying or screaming. She just sounded tired. "I'm sorry, Alara," she said. I just didn't think. It was easier to be on Mom's side. It always has been. We've been treating you like a utility, like an ATM and a status symbol. I'm really, truly sorry." It was the first genuine apology I'd received from my sister in our adult lives. My mother's apology came a week later, forced and stiff, but it was a start. The dynamic was broken. They knew now that I was not a doormat. My boundaries weren't bad behavior. They were the terms of engagement. I did reinstate their guest privileges, but not before a long talk. I used my auditor's mind to lay out the new rules. My membership would not be used as a bargaining chip. My financial decisions were mine alone, and I would be treated as a daughter, not an obstacle. The next Mother's Day, we went to a lovely restaurant downtown. Not the club. I paid. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. And when my mother raised her glass to me, her thank you was quiet, but for the first time, it was real.